what we're doing with 10.0. So as spoken, Levi's is based out of San Francisco, California. We have about 14,000 employees worldwide selling our product. We do it in 110 different countries, 55 different countries we use to actually make the product, and we leverage 750 different contractor factories in doing so. A little background on our landscape. We have 35 plus SAP landscape systems throughout the world. We have ECC 6.0 production in 2 areas. In the US business, we have ECC 6.0, and in APD, we have ECC 6.0. We are actually in the middle of a global rollout right now. We're rolling out a 3rd production instance of ECC 6.0 to Europe, and that ultimately will be our global production ECC 6.0 instance. We are participating in multiple SAP ramp-ups, not just AC 10.0, so we're always trying to be at the forefront of some of the technologies. And our current AC 5.3 landscape includes an instance that we do provisioning for our Asia Pacific business, which includes production and non-production systems, and a instance where we provision for the US instance, which is production and non-production as well. Once we finish our AC 10 ramp-up, we'll have one global instance, and we'll use that AC 10 instance to provision to Europe, Asia, and the US, all our systems, both production and non-production. So where we started, about 2 years ago, before we went down the GRC 5.3 path, we had an actual in-house developed info path form. So the provisioning process was strictly manual. We had the users going into the form, filling out their requests. Part of the problem was the business really didn't understand what they were asking for in cases, and many times what they did was they fill out the comment section and say, please give me this. And so it was kind of like IT, we had to interpret what that meant. So we didn't really have that business ownership. Another issue with the form is we didn't have any automated SOD capabilities. So it was truly done on a manual basis based on what was in our business support and IT knowledge in their heads. So we didn't have that official gate, so to speak. The process itself, it took an average of about 14 days to provision users access. So that was definitely an issue that also drove the lack of business ownership. They really kind of threw their hands up. So another issue is we didn't have an easy way to do the SOD identification and resolution. So it kind of caused more headaches. So what we decided we wanted to do was we wanted to go to 5.3. So by doing that, we wanted 2 things. We wanted to not only clean up our environment, but we also wanted to streamline our provisioning process. So we took the phase approach. The first step, what we did is we worked with our external audit partners and our internal audit business to actually customize our rule set. So we started with the SAP standard rule set, and we had Levi's Global Finance Policy, which essentially was a Word document. So we went through and we merged that and we customized our rule set, what made sense for Levi. We then went and cleaned up at a role level. Our goal was to have 0 inter-role conflicts and not to mitigate anything at the role level, so strictly clean roles. And once we accomplished that, we went to the user level. Took the same approach. We wanted to remove as much access as possible. What we ended up doing is we did some analysis based on RBE data and some reporting out of SAP to see, what are the conflicts? Are these users actually even using these transactions? Are they using the transactions that are in the roles that are causing the conflicts? Once we did that analysis, we removed what we could. Doing that cleared off greater than 50% of the conflicts right there. The remaining ones, we actually worked and we mitigated in the system, getting approved mitigating controls, building that into GRC 5.3. What this allowed us to do was to then implement CUP. So what we did, we integrated RAR and CUP. We made it so we implemented that gate so there was the automatic SOD check prior to provisioning. So now, currently today, whenever a request comes in, the system does its thing, it gets routed to the user's manager, and then if it's a conflict, it gets routed to the controllers group. The controllers group decides whether or not the person's allowed to have it. They either accept the request, deny the request, mitigate whatever needs to be done, and then they actually approve it, and then the system automatically provisions it. So another item that we did to get to our final point of continuous compliance is we are now leveraging the UAR capabilities in 5.3 and also the role reaffirm capabilities to do access reviews. So we do those on a semi-annual to annual basis depending on the review. So by doing all this, we achieved our continuous compliance. So today we are in a much better state. All our SOD conflicts are reviewed and approved prior to getting provisioned in the system. All system identified conflicts are mitigated in full. One of the biggest wins that this implementing in 5.3 gave us was we actually got business ownership. The business now truly owns the process. We have role owners, what we identified as sensitive access roles. We identified business owners of these roles. So as part of the process, they are the ones that are actually approving access to their processes, which is definitely a great thing. We actually trained all the end users to be able to make the requests by themselves. So the users can go in, make the request. We leveraged an integration between LDAP and GRC, so it pre-populated with manager data, and it gets routed appropriately via workflow. This gained us real-time visibility, so now the users can actually go in and see where their request stands at any point in time, which is definitely a big win for the business. They really like that. It also helped our audit partners because they can actually go in and see the approvals where they took place, what controls were mitigated, how they were mitigated, and they can extract their list of controls and do the testing that they need to do. And this was all done by automation, so it was really leveraging the automation that allowed us to get to this point. Another thing we did is we actually configured all the email alerts, so when a request is made, when it's approved, when it's denied, if an SLA is violated, the user, the requester, and the owner or the manager actually gets email alerts for that. By doing all this, it actually gives some stats that we can share. So before we started the project, we had 1,430 users that had SOD violations. Today we have 10. And those 10, we fluctuate between 0 and 10, depending on what's happening in our business. Things move, so it's not like we're not watching those 10, it's a little fluctuation. We started with 200 roles that had SOD violations. We now have 0. And based on the processes in place, we only build roles that are clean for Levi's. At the risk level, this is always the big number that scares everyone. We had greater than 550,000 risk level violations. Now we're down to 110, 119. And another big win was the average time to provision users. Like I said, when we had that manual process, it was 14 days was the average time. We're actually down to 1.42 days on average now, and 65% of those complete within the same day. The outliers are probably the SOD conflicts that take a little more time to go through. But overall, it was definitely a very successful implementation. So now people say, well, why are you going to 10.0? So my colleague Alpesh Kumar will now go over some of the reasons why we are going to 10.0, some of the learning we've already done with 10.0 because we are so far along with the ramp up, and we'll take it from there.